An old friend has returned. Sort of. The Eureka Mignon Oro single-dose grinder. Back in December of 2021, I bought one of the first units to roll off the assembly line, and it had issues. You might have seen my review of that machine, which was not flattering. The example you're looking at here was manufactured more recently, and I've found a number of improvements. I'm going to examine it closely and test it thoroughly to see if it's become the grinder I was hoping for initially. I had planned to keep the first one and try modding it to suit me, but after tinkering for a while with little success, I changed my mind and decided it was truly defective and should be returned under a warranty claim. It turns out the folks at Eureka were eager to examine it. They later sent me this video. Here's my machine back in their workshop on the left, alongside a more recently built one on the right. The difference in sound is pretty obvious. Later, I'll do a sound comparison of my new single dose with the Niche Zero. Viewers who commented on the original review reported a range of complaints from minor to major that cropped up with little consistency. But my original machine was plagued by an unusually large number of defects. If you want to know just how many, you can check out that video. I'm not going to enumerate everything wrong with it today. I've already done that. Instead, I want to look at the improvements as the manufacturing process has evolved so that you can decide if this grinder in its current form might suit you. After my first experience, I dismissed it as not ready for sale, and with good reason, but I wouldn't dismiss it today. Let's find out why, shall we?
Oh my God.
It's like a miracle.
First, I like to do the ink test using a whiteboard marker. I find this is a good indicator of quality control testing. As you can see, the lower burr is wiped clean with just a faint trace of red ink. The upper one is reasonably clean. These are probably parallel to within 1 or 2/10 of a millimeter, which is the diameter of the smallest finds you're likely to make, so well within spec. This gives me a good first impression of manufacturing care and quality control. These burrs don't need adjusting, but since I'm in the neighborhood, I'll just go ahead and shim the upper carrier with foil to get them spot on. I start with shims 0.15 of a millimeter, which turns out to be just right. The grinder would work perfectly without intervention, but now it's just about ideal, so I can sleep tonight. Incidentally, if you find flat burrs that are noticeably out of parallel on a new machine, the first thing you should do is check that all the fasteners are snug before you start bothering with ink and shims. This lower burr carrier appears different from the one I remember on my first single dose. It has 4 islands that support the burr, where I'm pretty sure there used to be a ring. It also has that fresh from the CNC machine look to it. I questioned these changes, and the company explained that they're now using 2 parts suppliers to ensure availability, and that the grind chamber geometry is unaffected. So you might get this one or the older, more familiar design. It's not a change from one to another. It's just a parallel supply stream. There is a preload spring on the adjustment arm, which on my first machine had not been set up and caused me some trouble. It's all right here, but when this is out of whack, you'll find that espresso is very difficult to dial in. More obviously, you'll get a pour over that looks like this, thick layers of fines with boulders beneath. This is caused by the lower burr chattering and fluttering because there's not enough load on it. If you encounter this problem, check out my first single-dose review for instructions on how to fix it. The burrs have the same blade pattern as the Specialita and several other Mignons, but they're bigger at 65 millimeters. There will be very little difference in the coffee, which is a good thing, but bigger burrs are faster. I'm seeing almost 3 grams per second grinding for pour-over and 2 grams per second for espresso. Pretty speedy for a home machine. It still vibrates a bit, but not nearly as badly as my first one did. Let's look at the runout. The champ so far is the niche 0 with a trifling 0.5 on the gearbox output shaft. This rotor assembly has two concentric relationships, the carrier to the motor shaft and the burr to the carrier. I'm going to measure off the edge of the burr to get the total. This is 0.05 or around 0.13 of a millimeter. Reasonable for a home appliance in this price range. Remember, it's a coffee grinder, not a centrifuge. You're definitely going to feel some vibration with a 1650 RPM motor, but it's not going to thrash or dance its way off the counter as my old one did. The burrs are very nicely made, and just to verify, the inside and outside diameters are perfectly regular, so there's no chance that they're contributing any vibration or noise. Yes, I did lap the flats here as part of my alignment routine. It's not necessary. In fact, I doubt it has any noticeable effect, but it's the kind of thing I enjoy. You can check out my hyperalignment video for more on that if you're curious. Alright, now let's consider the user experience. First up, the noise compared to the niche 0. I'm using my Zoom H5 positioned about 10 inches from the center of each machine. I won't do any audio processing, and I'll adjust the volume the same amount on both. Here's the single dose unloaded, and here it is grinding. Here's the 0 unloaded, and now grinding. So the Eureka is vastly improved in this regard. It sounds like any other Mignon series grinder. The vibration is still there and you can feel it, but it's not concerning. The touch points are much improved. The gate valve, which had a jagged edge and burrs on the bottom surface, is getting a proper polishing now and it feels fine. It's smooth and snug and quiet. The metal chute liner has been polished on the lower edge that protrudes where your hand might brush it. Previously it had been unfinished and jagged, eager to scratch you. The wooden lid, which previously had fit so tightly that during a struggle to remove it I accidentally broke it, has been refitted and now works as it should. The plastic one is fine too. Everything about the grinder feels good now. You'll enjoy interacting with it. The bellows no longer comes away when I sneeze. I find the system as effective as before and more stable now. To avoid rattles and buzzes, there are two fasteners to pay attention to. This one that holds the silvery plastic lid in place, and this smaller one that secures the hopper. Make sure they're both snug. The wooden and plastic lids are both quiet when they're mounted on the hopper, but sitting on the bellows, they're free to move and might make a little noise. There's still some minor buzzing, so let's find it. And here's the culprit, this little cone inside the hopper. It's a snap fit and comes apart easily. If the noise bothers you, a scant drop of hot glue in just the right place should prove effective, invisible, and easy to undo with a little bit of force. Keep glue away from the hooks, of course, or you'll have a permanent mod. Let's consider neatness. The tidiness award so far goes to the Baratza Vario W+, which I reviewed not long ago. Here I'm grinding for pour over into the Eureka 70-gram cup. Nothing spills. I use the bellows as recommended, then leave the machine for 15 minutes so that any static charge can dissipate. I tap the chute housing with a wooden handle. Now I rock it back and let it fall forward to see if any clumps fall out. And that is pretty good, nearly equal to the Baratza. Here's the same test, now grinding for espresso using the other dosing cup. And again, no spilling. And no retained clumps. This is a tidy machine. It won't leave grit on your kitchen counter. Like the Baratza, this is a considerate houseguest. Let's look quickly at the pour-over performance. This is 30 grams of coffee with 400 milliliters of water, timed for 5 minutes. There is some accumulation of fines, but it's nicely balanced. This is similar to the result I got from the Baratza Vario Plus with flat steel burrs. It's almost as good as the Specialita I modded with Brew Pro burrs, which enable even finer grinding. There are only subtle differences among the three. The flavor is excellent. You could easily use this grinder just for pour-over. It's very much like the Specialita, only faster, tidier, and more stylish. Definitely more of a premium package. If it seems that I'm giving it a pass on issues that I failed it on previously, that's because this is a matter of degree. Some minor irritations remain, but in the context of price, they're quite tolerable. I can now say comfortably that this is the machine I was hoping for from the start. If you're looking for something in the roughly €500 prosumer mid-range, which grinds for any method competently, that's neat and tidy and stylish, I think you'll be very happy with this. Well, that's about all I've got today. I had something unexpected and interesting lined up for next time, but some miscommunication has caused a last-minute delay. I'm sure I'll think of something good to slot in there, so keep in touch. Cheers!